You're all I got. Big party for an American hero. My son, the astronaut.
But could you pay me in advance?
You serious?
Oh shit. Here we go again.
Here we go again. Oh my god, the drama. It never ends. It literally never ends. Now it's gotten to a point where this has become borderline harassment and just like trying to threaten and blackmail me and kind of stuff like that. I've responded to the original bogus claims that he laid out there in the very first video. And I talked about how this, fan or supposed person decided to spam and say some stuff in the server, which is pretty obvious. Now, of course, he's edited and not made it look like he's the bad guy, and he's still continuing to do the same old shit. And at this point, I've talked to people and tried to get a lot of advice for how I should handle this, and a lot of people said I should just ignore it and just let it go, which obviously is the better option, just to take the high road and leave things be. I made my video, I talked about how things looked, and he's already made another video, and I just ignored it, didn't even want to respond, didn't feel like it was worth responding. I said all I needed to say, I proved some things, it shows where he spammed, he deleted his stuff. I even backed up a little bit of my claims because he's deleted stuff off his YouTube shit. So obviously I said all I needed to say. Now, as of today, I was thinking all is right with the world. I had stuff I needed to do today. I was going to draw, work on stuff. And then I look in the server and of course I get the same person with a different account deciding to spam and kind of like, I see like a bunch of notifications. All the messages were deleted. Then I actually check. Then I send a friend request. I realize who it is and just say, no, fuck that. And then he proceeds to message me. And this time he does not delete his messages with a bunch of screenshots and proving he's lying more and misconstruing things, while also borderline trying to threaten me. So he doesn't, make a video and he just wants to talk. And, you know what? I will talk. I will say and let down all the truth and everything and clear up any miscommunication with the drama, because this has gotten to a point now where this has become actual harassment and actually being really, like, how could you misconstrue this into a point where this isn't harassment? This isn't you trying to dox me. This isn't, this or that. When you deliberately do this, like, I'll explain it a little bit more here in a bit. Because I have notified other people, and like I tried to explain my side on this, because I've talked about it, and because I'm a very, so for me, I've talked about it in great detail with other people and explained everything, and they're just like, most people understand that this right here, this is bullshit. I'm sorry, man, it is. And now, as of today, when you messaged me, now this has gotten to a point where there's no crossing back, and I have to say something. This type of false accusations at this point have gotten to a point where I've already cleared some stuff and talked about it sometimes on stream and try to clear up what my point is, because that's just how I am as a person. Now, I will admit, now, if I make fun of something or kind of like joke around, that is just how I am as a person. I've done it on stream when I address things or I talk about it. I'm very blunt. I'm very assertive. Now, do I like the idea of making fun of someone? No, I don't think that's cool. I don't like harassment, and I don't like it being done to anyone. And I borderline, sure as hell, don't try to do it to anyone else. Now, for this, this has gotten to a point where that's what this is. So, here are the messages that were sent to me today. Now, I want to address this publicly, and I want to address it without having to censor it and try to worry about all these people. Because at this point, this is pretty shitty. So, here we go. The same account that was on YouTube decided to message me again and basically go in a harassing style. So, bullying, like blah, blah, blah. He mentions my age. He mentions the 14-year-old girl, which is Lola, which I will explain that whole thing in a minute, and I'll talk about that in greater detail because he's pulling that one from the community post, which he has no idea the full context of. Basically decides, to say, before you block me or anything, I will have people that will text you about it, and I just want to talk, that's all. hello, because I was ignoring him at this point and downloading the screenshots because I wanted some evidence. And he basically says, you know, he threatens me by saying, once I'm gone, the deal's off the table, and the other kids that you've been bullying can't think of anything to say or what. And at this point, I wasn't even giving him the time of day. I was downloading all this for evidence because at this point he had threatened me. So, as you can perfectly see. And I want to clear up a lot of miscommunication. Now, I did not bully anyone. I don't like bullying. I don't harass. I don't like the idea of bullying. I don't do bullying. Now, how something could come off to someone as harassment or bullying when it's clearly not, now that can be debatable because everyone has a different point of view. Now, there is other screenshots that he sent me, which he doesn't realize does kind of incriminate him in some aspects, but, you know, here we go. He decided to send me multiple screenshots of these conversations with him and his other people in his server, or maybe a Discord chat of friends. Who knows? I don't care. It's none of my business. But basically, there was a lot of throwing shade at me and kind of making it seem like I'm some type of jerk. And because he was lying to them about the whole situation with Lola and very heavily misconstruing things to make it seem like I made fun of her, calling her dumb, or just other stuff. I made a post about this, kind of like he takes it out of context, sends it to them to make it seem like I'm some type of jerk. And he even acknowledges that, you know, basically that we're the same age. Also, he acknowledges the sub count thing, yeah, and other stuff. And he basically kind of makes it seem a certain way and misconstrues it very heavily, which I'll get into when I clear up all the different stuff when it came to the Lola thing. And he screenshots it like at a certain points in this conversation without the full context of my responses and makes it seem very heavily, very heavily like I'm some type of jerk and stuff like that. And it's not just that. He does this multiple times. Which he also lies very heavily because Lola does not have a Discord server, and he basically made that one up. This is on YouTube, and these were in comment sections, and we were talking and having a back and forth. He lies a lot throughout these different screenshots, which is proven, and kind of makes it seem a very certain way, when it's really not. He lies a lot, and even acknowledges something that he's done, and he's been doing. So it's basically went into harassment, doxing, and also stalking now. Let's add that to the list. So in this screenshot, he basically says that, basically acknowledging that he's made multiple accounts and he's been stalking and stuff like that, while also acknowledging half of truth about what Lola says. Now, there's more to this. Now, I want to talk about that in a later point in this video. But he basically acknowledges that he's been stalking, making other accounts, and pretty much going on my channel and kind of trying to collect as much stuff as he can to really start something. Now, there's a lot of context missing when it comes to the Lola stuff. Now, I want to kind of clear the air here. Now, did I make some mistakes on how I criticized and how I worded things? Yes. Did I go around every fucking 5 seconds to her channel or stuff like that? No. There was a lot of gaps in between because in some aspects I started to notice how she was behaving and how she was handling certain things, and I didn't personally agree with that. And as another artist, you are allowed to criticize someone's behavior. And when the few times I did, she did not like it. And she kind of is the same way with a lot of people that either call her out or basically make a certain video kind of acknowledging her in some aspects in a more negative light. Now, do I agree that negative comments should, go her way? No. Do I think people are allowed to criticize her behavior or basically her art in some aspects? Yes. Like I acknowledge in my post, constructive criticism is part of the game. And if someone can't handle it, then there's not much you can do. Hell, I get a lot of constructive criticism all the time. I got a comment on the gaming channel saying, basically my frame rate was a bit choppy. I maybe need to work on that. And of course I took it and I was like, okay, I need to maybe work on how I edit things and get better frame rates for stuff and stuff like that. That's how you should handle it. And like, of course I didn't respond, but I basically like put it in my head and noted it as like a criticism, and I worked to improve it. That's how things should be handled. Now, do I think that her art is great? Yes, I think she's a great, talented artist. It's just like anyone else. I treat, other people with respect as long as it's given. And you're going to be seeing a lot of that. Now, what my point was with her in our back and forth in the comments is just acknowledging, hey, you kind of don't take criticism very well. You don't, you hide things, or you just do not allow people to say something against you in some aspects. It's like criticizing certain things. And I noticed that especially with me. I noticed it especially with any other things. And she does have a bit of a toxic fan base because it is a bit of kids. And anyone who criticizes her, which you're going to be seeing, basically they go after, which is something that he neglected to mention that I've encountered when it came to certain aspects of how she was. Even me acknowledging that this is the internet. If something doesn't get a lot of views, don't dwell on it, work to improve and get a lot more attention by just moving forward. Don't focus on it, don't cry about it, go forward. And she responded very negatively to that and almost very hostile, which she does seem to do a lot of to anyone that either has a criticism or doesn't just immediately give her praise. Like, I can understand, I can be happy for someone, but of course I can also criticize them in their actions or what they do. I don't have a problem with her as an artist. She's probably a good person. I don't know her. I don't have a relationship with her. She's a 14-year-old. She has a lot to learn. And as someone who's 21 and who was at that state when I was 14, basically, I learned from a lot of different experiences, and I had to prop myself up and not put myself on a pedestal and not, let the praise get to my head. I actually had to work on improving myself and not having as much of a reaction to negative stuff, but also taking criticisms to not taking them to heart, but actually working to improve and basically say, okay, I see where they're coming from. I need to work on this and not be as hostile and act like I'm so good, I'm so great. That's the problem. Now, if you noticed with my post, I try to clarify and be a little bit civil with the way I was describing things and basically saying, not saying that's where you are, I'm not saying that's who you are, but that's where you could be going. And from what I've seen, that's kind of where you're at. And I want you to improve and not go down that route. And with her response, with how hostile it was and how triggered it was, that's where there was a lot of proving my point. If she could have acknowledged and kind of thought into it a lot more and basically well, maybe he has a point. I personally understand that maybe, with how our interactions have been, there was a lot of, condescension at points on both ends, and how basically maybe how I came across wasn't the best. Now, that is a part of the internet. Things can get lost in translation very easily. Very easily. And for me, what my points were, if you noticed even with the community post, I'm not calling her dumb. I didn't make fun of her. I'm not saying that she's a fraud. I'm not doing any of that. It's me basically acknowledging I have a lot more experience. I want you to not go down this route because you're very close with how you're handling things. There is a clear distinction. Like anyone, you can criticize my actions for how I handle things, and I can take it like a champ. Or you can criticize my art, and you can say it looks like shit, or you can basically say you need to work on your coloring palette, your anatomy, or stuff like that. Of course, it's all things I need to learn, and that's all things I can improve on. Every artist is always still learning. And the thing is, it's also every person is still learning, not just about with art, it's also with character. And, that's you have to learn a lot of humility. And that's really what I was trying to get at. Now, was that lost in translation? Probably. But that was forever and always my point. And for it to get misconstrued into this lie that I went into her server, that she has a Discord server, which she doesn't, That's the first thing he fucked up on. Second thing is, you know, him lying to people and saying I made fun of her and I told her she shouldn't do art, that she shouldn't do this, and blah, 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 blah. None of that was ever fucking said. I can't even, I'm sorry. I can't even say that and not laugh, because I would never, ever, ever, ever fucking say that, ever. And even with like a Twitch stream, like I was drawing, like somebody sent me their art on Discord. And I acknowledged, I said, it looks great. It does have a few I even sent like a few criticism and said, or at least said some. And like, I don't like hurting people's feelings, but you're allowed to do that, you know, as an artist or as a person. Like if somebody does something that you don't like, you're allowed to criticize. But sometimes it is better to keep it to yourself. And, you know, sometimes that's what I'm having to learn at times. But, you know, that's just the thing. You know, there is always something that you're learning. And as someone who's 21, I'm not in my 30s, I'm not 50, I'm not whatever. I'm always learning. And it's, you know, trying to control this, your mouth, is becoming very difficult, especially when you're younger. And on either or, it's always difficult. Now, I also wanted to talk about more about him lying his ass off, because he even did this a lot in changing the narrative in his own comment section for the very first video. And I wanted to show some highlights and kind of present things in a more respectful manner. Because, like, I don't have anything against the guy. I personally don't think it's okay, and I don't think it's cool for him to be doing this. I think that it's borderline starting to get, like, very weird, and I think it should stop. But, you know, people don't know when to quit, and that's just the sad reality of things, but that's just how it is. Now, with a lot of these comments, he does make the accusation, which I just did not address him at a certain point. I just, you know, said, thank you, blah, blah, blah. Because only 2 people in this comment section, I do believe, are actually a part of the server. And one of them does get very hostile with him back, which I don't think was good. I don't agree with it. I don't think that they should have been doing that. But people are allowed to speak their mind and say stuff. Do I think that he should have came across that firm? No. Do I think that, you know, the guy should even be getting the hate? No. But there's a lot of people in the server that are, a lot of people that are in that comment section that are questioning a little bit and even acknowledging he didn't threaten you. And there's nothing you can do, because you're threatening to get the cops involved when A, not the chance in hell that they would do anything, and B, he didn't threaten your life. And in some aspects, I didn't. You know, it's all a bunch of bullshit. And yes, I even acknowledge in my original video, maybe it does come off that way with the way I worded things, which I do apologize for. But if any sane person could go through it and you see like, okay, he was doing this, 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 and you're basically saying, hey, you know what? If you keep doing this, it's only going to get worse. You're just going to get yourself banned. It's just like, you're making the things harder, not just for me, but for yourself to even stay here. You're just causing more trouble and more pain. So for that is the main crux of it. He does not like to be called out, and that's where we leave ourselves at. I'm really hoping that he grows as a person and doesn't have to go this route. I've already acknowledged the full set of the drama where he does lie throughout this whole thing, even in these screenshots with his friends, that few things are taken out of context. He went to the community post, saw this, is like, oh, I can't win here, I'll just use that. And it's all a bunch of bullshit. And it sucks that I even have to make a video talking about it, but, you know, this is the internet, you do have to clarify things, and if I made a mistake, I would acknowledge it. In this case, I am acknowledging a couple mistakes, but I'm also saying that there was no bullying involved, there was no harassment intended or even done. It's all just a bunch of bullshit. And, yeah. So that's the end of the video. Peace out. Bye-bye.